I'm now joined by Benjamin Wong, who works with me in Gambling Support BC. Welcome back to the podcast, Ben.
Hello, Adrian. Good to see you.
I'm really glad you've joined me in this episode because one of the things that you do in your work is that you provide people with information about the options that are available for apps or software that they can use to block access to online gambling. And you also can walk them through a bit with the installation process, something I don't fully understand. So I'm glad you're here to explain it to me and to the listeners.
Great. Yeah, that's absolutely something that I find myself getting involved in on a regular basis. There are patrons, participants in our programs who find it helpful to have something external, sort of something added on to prevent them from going onto websites they want to keep some distance from. And yeah, for a subset of clients, it's a helpful tool to support their, you name it, recoveries, to support their making different choices. Yeah.
So let's start off with just the kind of basics. How do these apps work on devices?
If I may be bold, generally speaking, these applications are much like any other applications, any other software. Think of installing a game or installing a productivity software onto your device. Okay, it's an app. It's an app. It comes with an app icon, and once you click onto the app icon after installing the application on your device, it gives you. Usually, these applications are fairly user friendly. Okay, the majority of them are user friendly in a way that it's fairly self-explanatory. They're often designed in a way to guide you through the procedure, how to use the device, how to use the application in managing one's gambling activities.
And so if I had installed it, let's say on my phone, and then I went to try and access a gambling website, what happens?
Ideally, if the application fits the type of a situation for the participant, then the software, the application would prevent the the individual from gaining access to websites that they used to go to gamble.
Hmm.
that that's the idea. Now, there are there are applications, there are software that claim to get the job done, but they don't quite. Now, they may have the ability to block a certain number of websites, but then every now and then they may let they may let some websites or some applications, some gambling software pass their filter. In those situations, then we may need to um, look for different applications, different software to prevent access to those gambling websites, and their performance varies.
Hmm.
There are those that are known for being really sensitive towards potentially potentially websites that allow people to gamble. And what has happened was the some of the more sensitive softwares, they may even prevent the for example, I've had patrons telling me that some of the more sensitive ones, they prevent them from even looking up the word gambling
Oh, wow.
on Google.
Right.
So I've heard stories of such, and so it depends. We oftentimes, a lot of times, people, they would try out various different versions of even the same software just to test out whether they block the websites they don't want to access anymore.
Okay, so good to know. So it can be just a process to get the right fit. So just like maybe you're buying jeans, you might have to not necessarily get the first pair. You've got to try on and experiment. Good to know.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Mm.
Now,
And
another situation is
okay.
patrons, people who are tech savvy. I don't know if you've come across those who are tech savvy. they may, in the process of, well, cutting down on their gambling, or in the process of managing their gambling behaviors, they may they may play around after installing these gambling blocking softwares, and they would play around, sneak around, and voila, they they may come across some sort of a jailbreaking ways to break through the barrier, to break through the filter, and gain access to websites where they could gamble. So I've also heard that too. So it depends. It's really the selection process is really a process of exploration. I would refer to it as one. Finding out exactly where, how, what do I want from utilizing the software in managing my behaviors.
Hmm. And can you install this app on all different types of devices? Phones, laptops, desktop computers, tablets?
Some applications allow that. Some applications, they've got versions compatible with iOS. They've got versions compatible with Android, or various other different operating systems. And here's where it's important for the consumer, okay, for the consumer to pay attention to the fine print. There is no shortcut here.
Mhm.
Different software, different applications, they operate differently, and it's very important to just take the time to go through the fine print, understand the systems that they can work on, understand the minimal requirements, and if there's an associated piece of application or software that needs to be installed for the gambling blocking software to work at at its optimal design. It's very important to just take the time. Yeah.
Right.
And here's where I come into play. I've had experience supporting people installing certain software, even though we don't necessarily endorse any single one. And this is where I would coach them and guide them through what to look out for and what to think about before deciding on a particular software and paying for the service.
Mhm. And so, just if people are going to start doing this research, just what are the names of some of the blocking softwares that are out there to get them
Well,
started?
yeah, yeah, for sure, Adrian. Some of the more common ones you probably heard about them. Bet Blocker, that's a pretty popular one. Gamblock, there's Gamban, and there's also Goodbye Gambling,
Mm,
which apparently is a software that is available only on Android platforms. So
okay.
Google Play or your your so Google Play and Samsung App Store, I believe they'll be available there.
Okay. And I understand too that some have cost, some don't, so that can be another factor to look into.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And generally speaking, software or applications that claim to be able that claim the ability to block gambling websites, block access to gambling websites, if they're free of charge, not to be as they tend not to perform as well. They tend not to be as sensitive
Mhm.
in blocking access to gambling websites.
Okay, good to know.
Mhm.
Anything else just from your experience with these apps and walking people through the selection process that you just want to share or offer up to listeners who are also looking into this?
I'd say I'd say consider various different options if at all possible. Get in touch with people whom you know might have had some experience in looking into the best type of software to use.
Mhm.
For people in British Columbia, they're absolutely welcome to get in touch with our program for sure. And another piece is just be aware that the more functional and better performance software, they tend to go layers deep in their programming. That is also to say, they tend not to, if at some point after using the software for some time, if you decide to uninstall the program, if you decide to uninstall the software, the uninstallation process may be more complicated than it seemed.
Mm,
Yeah. So
okay.
that's just a couple of things to keep in mind, and which makes a lot of sense because gambling is quite a ubiquitous activity online. I would say there are just so many, right? I mean, in your work, you've come across just so many platforms on the internet allowing for people to gamble, and in order to effectively block access to gambling websites, well, some of these softwares they will have to go layers deep in their programming to get the
Mm,
job done.
okay, good to know. Yeah, and I think then that what I'm hearing is that it's a tool that can be helpful, particularly with slowing things down, right? If that pull, the craving to gamble is a struggle for you, it can help to slow things down for you. But certainly it's not foolproof, right? It's not the be all and end all. There probably is, as Gail said earlier in this episode, needs to be other strategies that go alongside it. Um,
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Another way I tend to think about gambling blocking software as the online digital version of a self-exclusion situation.
mhm.
Uh, it can be helpful, but it's not the only thing that we can. The only type of support that we can structure for ourselves. We recommend just looking into figuring out what source of support to align for oneself in order to achieve the change one desires.
Nice. And so in the notes for this episode, along with the blog that I write with it, I will let people know how they can get in touch with you if you live in British Columbia and you have questions, but also all of our colleagues in BC who can also walk you through this. But thank you for giving us the basics tonight. I appreciate that, Benjamin.
You're most welcome, Adrian. Glad to chat.